I've had a brilliant month, as I not only finished Richard Linklater's filmography, but I've also gotten around to some films that have been on my watch list forever. Now, next month I hope that I can check out some older films, as I've really been missing those lately, but sometimes you just need a fun month. Well, mostly fun. Starting off, I watched The Northman, one of my most anticipated films of the year. Now, before we go any further, I will say that The Lighthouse still reigns supreme, but this was brilliant. So going into this, I knew that with Eggers it was going to be pretty realistic with aspects of fantasy, but I wasn't expecting it in this regard. There's this sort of perfect balance between authenticity and myth. It doesn't go over the top, which I was scared of it doing, but it doesn't shy away from the fact that this isn't supposed to be just a raw telling of what the Viking era was. The casting felt perfect, although I would have loved to see more of Hawke and Defoe. The character arcs are prominent enough for me to actually talk about it, which should tell you something, and the performances were incredible. I'll be truly surprised if we don't see any big nominations. As for the cinematography, I hope Eggers never parts with Jarin Blaschke. His work on this is easily some of the best I have ever seen in this kind of fantasy drama genre, and whilst his work on The Lighthouse was incredible, this just goes to show what he can do with a much larger budget. And if you want to see my video on The Northman, check out this video from a few weeks ago. Now, I saw In the Mood for Love a couple of years ago now, and I loved it. It's easily one of the most visually stunning films I've ever seen and has the story to go along with it, so it was kind of surprising I didn't watch this sooner. The premise was something I wasn't really expecting, mainly because I'd thought of this more of a direct sequel, even though I knew that in the back of my head it was just loosely related. But it's spectacular. You're drawn in immediately, and not just from the story, but the characters, locations, score, and of course, cinematography. As for the acting, Tony Leung was brilliant as always. He manages to bring such depth to his characters, and I can't wait to check out more of his films. I mean, the rest of the cast was amazing, but he just really stood out. Of course, this film would have been the same without Wong Kar-wai's direction, and even though it's incredibly hectic during principal photography, he clearly knows how to make an incredible film. Cape Fear was really reminiscent of something that I've seen many times before, which kind of spoiled everything as it was a pretty accurate depiction. However, it's still an incredible watch. Scorsese obviously knows what he's doing when it comes to these thrillers, De Niro was astonishing as always, and Freddie Francis' cinematography really amplified the overall experience. It's one of those crucial Scorsese watches. On to the first Linklater film of the month, we have Suburbia, which for me feels like Linklater at his best. We have that loose narrative that he is famous for, characters that feel like everyday people, unfortunately, cinematography that doesn't go over the top and just helps develop the story, and is kind of just an easy watch, one that even if you aren't a Linklater completist like me, you should definitely give a go. After only seeing amazing things about everything everywhere all at once, I was pretty scared going in, and I didn't try to keep expectations too high just in case it didn't live up to them. However, it did, and it's easily one of the best films of the year so far. The story is phenomenal and not as hard to follow as you'd expect from a multiverse story to be. The casting is perfection, and I can't express how happy I am to see Ke Huy Quan return to acting. I don't know why, but I'm surprised at how good the VFX was as well. I guess it's just down to the fact that I've seen so much worse in Marvel with budgets 10 times this. And also, I saw Doctor Strange a week or so later, and as much as I love Rami, it just wasn't it. And the VFX wasn't nearly as good. Overall though, I think everyone needs to see it. It definitely didn't have the effect on me that it had on some other people, but as far as fun dramas go, you really can't beat it. Going into Taxi, I wasn't expecting much. At most, I wanted to have 90 minutes where I could just enjoy this comedy I found on Prime, but it really surprised me. The action was brilliant, the characters are enjoyable to watch, the story is easy to watch, and you really can't ask for anything more. Also, just writing this review, I found out that there are 3 more of these films, and I'm not really sure what to think about it, but I'll probably end up giving them a watch someday. However, you should still give Taxi a watch. A much lesser known Linklater, but still an incredible addition to his filmography, is Tape. The 90-minute, 1-room, 3 actors pretty much play in film form, but it is actually a play as well. Now, I think these types of films from Linklater are my favourite. Just people watching, interesting characters talking for 90 minutes, Ethan Hawke. There's just something about these kinds of films that bring me comfort. Maybe not the subject matter in this, but my point is there. They aren't intense and are just a way for me to be transported to another reality for a while. Again, even if you aren't a Linklater completist like me, you should definitely go give it a watch. You can't really go wrong with a animated Linklater film, and this animation style just feels like classic Linklater. I mean, you have all of the aspects for an incredible film of this: an intriguing plot, incredible cast, brilliant score, and Linklater. But what ties this all together is that animation style that I've mentioned several times before, because it just feels as though you are in a dream. Having actors that we know and love on screen but in animation form is something I can't really recall anywhere else. The story also just drags you in, and there are moments where you never want it to end. Definitely an interesting entry into Linklater's filmography, but one I will revisit for years to come. Now, this isn't exactly a Linklater film, but it's all about him, and it's one of my favourite watches this month. So I've been feeling in a bit of a slump lately when it comes to filmmaking, but it's films like this that keep me going and inspired. Linklater is an icon for me, and to see his rise from Woodstock to Everybody Wants Some is incredible. And then to have actors like Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy and Jack Black, amongst many others, just revere over him is something that you really don't see from a lot of other directors. No doubt this is going to be one of those documentaries that I come back to at least once a year. I'll also quickly add that I also watched It's Impossible to Learn to Plough by Reading Books this month as well, which is his first feature, and I can't recommend it enough for fans of his as well as aspiring filmmakers, and since it's on YouTube, I'll put it in the description down below. So seeing the reviews on Where Do You Go Bernadette, I was skeptical going in, but I ended up really enjoying it. Now, even though this is one of the more studio-like films from Linklater, he clearly had a bit more control in this compared to some of his other studio films. The conversations feel more natural to an extent, the Bernie-style documentary aspects really add something that I can't quite put into words. The characters are fun to watch, the cast is brilliant. I really wasn't expecting to see Steve Zahn though. The story is fulfilling and it has a pretty satisfying ending. There really isn't much to hate on. And then after this I finished the month off with Me and Orson Welles and Bad News Bears, thus finishing his filmography. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, not just if you did. If you have a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thank you so much for watching and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!